Well, this may be the first online course that you've ever taken. Almost certainly, it's the first online course that you've taken with me as an instructor. So I want to talk for a bit about how the course is designed. I will leave it to you to read the syllabus on your own, but for the love of Mike, read it. And always keep it handy because most things that you're going to want to refer to are in the syllabus. It's pretty thorough. So make sure that you read it. Hmm. Okay. Uh, the basic course design is like this. It is asynchronous. A synchronous course would be one in which you were all doing the same thing at the same time. You'd be logging in together for a Zoom meeting, for example. But that's practical only with a limited class size. And this particular class is too large to make that viable. So the presentations are recorded and you can watch them at whatever time is convenient. And that's what makes it asynchronous. Each week will focus on a particular subject organized into modules. Each module consists first of a summary of the requirements, particularly of the readings for that week. And then comes the lecture for that week, which takes the form of several recordings of about 20 to 30 minutes each. Now, some of the recordings are informal. That is to say, I'll speak without notes. But in most cases, I'll be reading from a prepared script. Visually, this is less than ideal because you'll always see me looking at the script rather than looking directly at you. However, it greatly reduces the number of vocalized pauses, the ums and ahs and so forth, that usually aren't noticeable in a regular classroom, but can quickly become both noticeable and annoying in a recorded presentation. Now, the presentations are graphics intensive. That is to say, I use illustrations liberally and text sparingly because I want you to be listening to me and not copying down what's written on a PowerPoint slide. Nevertheless, I try hard to make the main points obvious. The rest of what I say is mainly to illustrate the principal points. And there will usually be a computer-generated transcript available either via YouTube or some other mechanism. So that should help. The system isn't perfect, but you may find it helpful, these transcripts, particularly if English is a second language to you. Each module has two low stakes quizzes, and the two together are worth 10 points, or if you want to think about it this way, 1% of your course grade. And they're intended mainly to save you from yourself in terms of reducing the human tendency to procrastinate, which most of us have. Most of us struggle with it. In some weeks, you'll be asked to take a survey in addition to the quizzes. Now, most surveys are anonymous, but when you submit the survey, you'll automatically receive the points assigned to it, which is usually 5 points, sometimes a bit more than that, never less. Now, finally, most modules, though not all, will have topics for discussion, usually based upon a video or an article. And I've divided the class into small groups of 5 or 6 students each. You'll be asked to contribute a comment on the discussions topic for that week and then respond to someone else's comment and hopefully generate a dialogue within your group so that it's not a sort of a pro forma exercise. You sort of put a comment up there because you have to, and respond to another comment because you have to, and let it go at that. Ideally, what should happen is that you get a real discussion going that kind of rolls along over the course of the week. That way, you get better acquainted with your fellow students and you have a richer understanding that emerges concerning the topic for that week. Now, you're probably thinking that the discussion groups sound a lot like a group project, and I know what you think about group projects, probably. What I learned from group projects, a little bit the information, a little bit how to work with other people, a lot about how to do entire projects on my own because you can't count on anybody else, and then half of it is how much I hate people. Or possibly you see it this way. Group projects are supposed to teach you communication, responsibility, collaboration, and teamwork. And you see the way that it works in a lot of teamwork. What group projects taught me, a little bit of communication, a little bit of responsibility, a little bit of collaboration, a little bit of teamwork, but mostly trust no one. And if you want to take that attitude, that's a pretty rugged attitude to take, but don't, because you might think of the discussions more like this, more the way that they operate in real life, which is to say, as a real, honest to goodness conversation. Take time to get to know each other as people. In fact, I frame some of the questions in order to more or less force you to do this. And if you'd like to set up your own Zoom meeting within your group to talk together, I can arrange that. And although this course is online, many of you will be on campus. So why not take the opportunity to actually get together over a beer, if you're old enough, or a soft drink, if you're not. The more comfortable you are with one another, the more effort you're likely to put into the discussions, and the more you'll learn from them. And just so, by the way, that the illustration that I'm using for this particular slides shows a group of people sitting around glasses of non-alcoholic beer. This is a advertisements by a craft brewery that thinks that it puts out a pretty good kind of non-alcoholic beer. So there you go. Now, each presentation will begin with a title slide, gives the title of the presentation, and then contains a list of key terms. Now, this particular set of key terms is rather a lot. This particular example has 16 key terms, but most presentations will have about 10, sometimes less, very seldom more. And the questions on the midterm and the final examinations will largely be drawn from the key terms. So make sure you know and understand each of them. You'll need to be able to define each term, explain why it matters, and be able to place the term in the larger context of the historical narrative. Now, to help with this, the next slide always contains a list of the learning objectives for the presentation, as shown here. So I'll present them to you one at a time, just like that, and talk you through each one of them. And so the key terms and the learning objectives together constitute the study guide for the specific course being taught. But on Carmen, you'll find a sort of all-purpose study guide that tells you the types of questions that you'll be asked and suggests how to approach them. And between that all-purpose study guide and the key terms and the learning objectives for the specific course, you will get a good, solid study guide for all of the examinations.